Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Layman's Law School once again, where this time two fine Southern gentlemen discuss the legal topics of the day.
The boss man has given us free reign again.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. So it's always an adventure when Chace is out. Let's just say that.
Of course.
So start us off, Shawn.
Beautiful Friday.
Happy Friday. We got a little cloud cover, but, outside of that, I think we're going to be good.
Well, I mean, and you can tell that we are, dedicated to our craft.
Absolutely.
Because on a beautiful day like today,
we
could be playing golf.
Right.
And we're not. We're here bringing content and information to the viewers.
Yep. And here, cheers.
Cheers.
And I will say, only thing we miss right now is Chase's face, that grimace. But I'm glad that you didn't wear the green shirt today, so it would have been twinsies.
I thought about it when I changed out of my shirt and tie at the house. I thought, master shirt?
Yeah.
No, I'll do something with a little more color in it.
Well, we'll jump into our topic today is essentially jury misconduct. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but it's really about the jury selection process in the Young Thug RICO case. So
a juicy circus of a case.
I mean, just absolute clown show is what we got going on. We'll break it down. But can you explain a little bit about what is jury misconduct and what the effects of that would be?
Well, anytime, the key to a jury is getting, basically 12 people that are unbiased and don't know anything about the case to decide the case based on the law that the judge instructs them on and based on the evidence that they hear about in court that's admitted in court.
Right.
So anything that could come into play and impact any of that could be considered misconduct. At the beginning of a jury selection process, the judge reads all the potential jurors' rules, things that they can do, things that they cannot do.
Right.
Discussing the case amongst themselves, they're not allowed to do. Discussing the case with a family member.
I've noticed, a lot of times, I think that's a common misconception is, I think people kind of understand that they're not supposed to. They do. Now, they're not supposed to talk about the case to, people on the street or even their family members. And, I think they understand that. But one thing I don't think people get is you're not supposed to discuss it at all with the other jurors until all evidence is in, right?
Until deliberations,
right.
Correct. You're just supposed to take in the information, make the necessary notes that you think are important.
Yeah.
And then when deliberations come, that's when the group, of jurors talk and come to some type of consensus or not on what has been proven and what has not been proven.
Right. And obviously bribes and bullying and that kind of stuff is obvious. But it just reminds me there's a book coming out by a lady, I can't remember her name right now, but she's from Georgia, and she's actually going to be on Law Call in a couple of weeks. But she was explaining one of the cases had a juror. So people wouldn't assume this is a bribe, right? But like 3 of the jurors gave their money from jury duty to the 4th juror. That was the only way he could stay on the jury. Well, that's not a bribe, but you can't do that. It's probably innocent, but it still has the appearance of, well, what if those 3 that gave him or her the money, what if they voted one way and
that influenced him in some way?
Exactly.
Whether overtly or subconsciously. Absolutely.
Right.
There's things like that.
But it to the normal person, that seems pretty innocent, but it still could create a mistrial.
Absolutely. And what we see, what I have seen mostly in the day and age of the internet, is jurors doing their own research.
Right.
That's one of the most common things that are brought up, and usually other jurors tell the court about it.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got a note from the jury. Juror number so and so has indicated that juror number so and so has been doing outside research type thing. And it's sometimes simple things. Sometimes they're not looking up to try and find information about the case.
Right.
But they're trying to find information about, what is the punishment for aggravated assault, so that they know, what they are deciding on when the judge gives you, strict rules that punishment is not for you to even
decide.
contemplate or consider. So things like that, or they look up the location. This shooting happened at a nightclub. Let's look at what this
place. That kind of thing.
Stuff like that is all stuff that can. We use the legal system and the courtroom to filter the admissible evidence into the minds of the jurors.
Right.
And we don't want a juror to be able to go out and do research and see a bunch of statements that haven't been through that filter, that don't come into the trial, and use that in some way to, make or form an opinion on evidence.
The biggest issue there is, in the movies and stuff, you hear about bribery and that kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
But the boring stuff is what we're talking about. Those little things, and like you said, you think it doesn't mean anything, and it probably doesn't. But in the eyes of the court, that case has to be retried. That case has to be remanded. It can lead to just terrible consequences, sure, especially when it's found out after the fact. It's an appealable issue.
Sure.
The whole case can be flipped whatever way, and then it's either got to be retried or dismissed. It just on a criminal charge at least.
And it's expensive.
It's real expensive.
It's expensive for the courts to have a jury trial.
Yep.
And then to have to go back and do it all over again. Bring in 12 to 14 more jurors, because here in Georgia at least we usually get 2 alternate jurors, because something can come up in a 1-day, 2-day trial. Something can come up with one of them that makes them have to be excused, whether it's illness or.
Well, let me ask you, Shawn, you've done a bunch of criminal trials, defense and prosecution. How long would you say your voir dire, your jury selection would take? You just estimate. I mean, they're all different, but,
In a normal case, run of the mill, usually the morning.
Okay. Well,
usually we're starting, giving opening statements after lunch.
Right.
There's not, in the run of the mill case that doesn't have tons and tons of publicity that people, don't know anything about, or have, public figures that everybody knows or knows something about. It's usually very easy to find what at least we think are, unbiased jurors that don't have any prior information about the case, that are going to, be fair to the state as well as be fair to the defendant who's on trial. And once we ferret all that out and ferret out any, hardship things we usually are able to get a jury relatively quickly, and then, compose our thoughts over lunch and start battling. Start battling after lunch.
Yep. Well, this one's a little different. And so in the jury selection process, you have the judge asks specific questions and things. And then once his job's done, the other 2 attorneys, the defense and then the prosecution, get to ask questions and all that. So this case, the Young Thug RICO case, has...
And his name's not Rico. Rico is actually a charge.
Right. And what does that stand for? Is it racketeer, influence?
Racketeered, influence, corrupt organization.
That's right. It's a lot of...
It's a lot of words. But it's if you get charged with that... They're trying to bring a hammer on you.
Right. And I think that was originally created, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a gang trying to stop gangs, essentially.
Well, organized crime.
Crime.
Any type of organized crime. I mean, before what we typically think of gangs today, it was targeted at, organized
mafia,
crime, mafia, things like that.
Sure. So this is the Young Slime Life gang, and we're going to essentially talk about...
That's what YSL stands for?
Yeah, Young Slime Life.
I thought it was Young Successful Living.
I think that's a different one. It's a different organization. Okay. It's different.
I thought about joining it at one point.
But don't do it
Didn't
now.
know it was Young Slime Life.
Well, I mean, you're kind of slimy. But Young Thug, also known as Jeffrey Williams, that's another question I have for you. He's 31. When does he become middle-aged thug? I'm just curious.
No matter what, he's always going to be younger than me or you.
Right. He's Young Thug at heart.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Anyway, so here's the situation in this case so far. We're still on jury selection, and we haven't even got to the attorneys.
And they started it in January.
January 4th is when they started. So there's been 900 potential jurors brought in. Obviously, this is a problem. And there has been some things that the potential jurors have done that that I'm just curious about your opinion on, and I'm curious what you would have done as a judge yourself now, how you would have handled it. So the first one, the potential juror was live streaming the jury selection process. Now, there's been conflicting, I guess, facts about this. Some say that she was live streaming. Some say that she was just filming. Either way, the judge found out and he was not happy. What?
Of course he wasn't happy.
What's the problem there? What's the issue? What's wrong with that?
The problem is that, courts are a solemn place that have, decorum and professionals working through, and we have gentlemen who have their life on the line,
sure,
with these very, very significant criminal charges. And your number one focus as a juror or potential juror should be on what is going on in the courtroom, what questions are being asked by the judge or the attorneys during this jury selection, not in trying to make yourself popular and live stream or film. It just takes away from your attention.
It's one of my favorite expressions. This isn't about you.
Exactly.
So the judge, he sentenced this lady for doing this, whether it be live streaming or just filming. He sentenced her 3 days in jail for contempt of court. And here's another legal question I have for you. So they got her phone, right? And they went through it. The officers did, the bailiffs, and they found the video. So normally that would not be allowed. Why and how can the judge do that in this situation? I mean, I couldn't come up to you as just with no reason and take your phone and go through it. How is that? Is that not an unruly search and seizure? What's going on there?
Well, technically, I think it is.
It probably.
But what are the?
I kind of look at it as
the remedies?
That's the judge's playground. Well, you got to play by his rules.
It is. Judges have broad discretion to maintain the operations of their courtroom, whether it be for the efficient administration of justice or whether it be for safety purposes, things like that.
Well, and as you said a while ago, it is very expensive. And this case, you're talking about probably a 2-year case. I mean, of trying it and jury selection. If it might be longer. Yeah.
I would absolutely run.
Right. Yeah. So the judge has to, I think, think outside the box a little bit to make sure that the people that are on the jury, when it's finally selected, don't have anything that can be overturned on appeal.
Sure.
If you're going to spend this amount of time, this amount of money, I believe this is in Fulton. Yes, in Fulton County. That's a ton of money to the taxpayers. So the one thing for a judge that can get you not elected is to have to spend a bunch of money and then have to spend a bunch of money again.
Correct.
So I think he's doing what he should do, but it's pretty humorous in some of the things. Like, so this one that was sentenced to 3 days jail. The next juror, so the judge,
and he actually let her out after a few hours.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. And that's a very, very typical, thing that I've seen in my, career is, when people do something inappropriate, they get smacked down. The judge comes down heavy-handed.
Sure. Especially in open court.
Yeah. They get taken into custody right there and put, in the gallows of the courthouse. And after they've been able to sit and, I guess, meditate on what took place and maybe understand the gravity of the situation.
Things scare them a little bit. Yeah. Scared straight.
Yeah, the judges a lot of times will let them out, especially when it's something that wasn't so bad.
Right. I don't think the lady who was filming had any nefarious ideas. She was just thought it was cool. She just thought it was cool.
She was, like you said, she was just, it's all about her.
It's all about her. So, and that happens a lot. This one I thought was pretty good. So the judge is interviewing potential jurors for essentially hardship, which is, it's going to be a long time. Maybe you have a family member who is ill. Your job won't let you off that long. There's all kind of things like that.
Well, in a typical case, where normal, I keep saying run of the mill, but
99%
criminal
of cases
is going to take 2 to 3 days.
Right.
1 day
and a serious murder charge, maybe 2 weeks, maybe.
Correct.
Maybe.
Correct.
But,
but when you're asking this case, they are estimating to possibly take 6 to 9 months.
It's going to go way over
the trial of the case.
Right.
So they're having to question these jurors with that in mind. Normally, when we're questioning, potential jurors,
can you miss 2 days?
Is there anybody that has something so pressing in their life that they would be, their mind would be in a different place if they had to be here for these 2 days, or if there was a financial hardship, or things like that.
If you have a family member who is on their deathbed, for example, let's say the doctors give them 6 months to live, and the case is supposed to take 9 months. The state's going to let you out of that. I mean, they're not going to deprive you of seeing your family members. So that's what.
Well, and just think about you or me.
Yeah.
If we were being asked, I'm going to say, sorry. Well, I am an owner partner in a very, very busy law firm, and taking me away from that for 9 months or more. Yeah. It would be financially, disastrous for me and possibly for my, entire law firm.
Well, this is not on the jury, but you saying that there was an appointed public defender, which is, we won't go into that, but you can work for the public defender's office, or you can be appointed on certain cases.
A private attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
We've both been appointed. And she said that, and you get a flat fee for that. It's not something that you get paid over time, right? So you get a flat fee, and if this thing takes a year, she did tell the judge, she said, I'm going to start an OnlyFans because I'm going to go broke.
Well, I mean, if she's got to be in court basically every day
and she's got cases,
for a year,
and she's got cases,
she has the inability to take any other new cases on. She has to postpone every case for every other client that she already had, active.
And she may have clients incarcerated. That means they have to sit in jail.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but that's the attorney. We'll get into some more of that. But the next one, like I said, the judge is interviewing for hardships and all that, and that's taking a long time because it's a long case. And this one lady, one potential juror, she had a trip planned, and so they've been going on for months, and she's just one of the 900, and so she went to the Dominican Republic
and got called. It wasn't there.
It wasn't there. And the judge did not look fondly on that. And as we say, there's some unorthodox remedies here. The judge assigned her to write a 30-page paper, and she has to list 10 primary sources, 10 secondary sources, and it has to be on the history of juries, who could not serve on a jury, the jury service in Georgia, and the history of discrimination in the jury process of Georgia.
He wanted to make sure that she knew it was important.
I just thought the remedy was funny.
Or 20 days in jail.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you. So the maximum, from my understanding, is 20 days in jail, $1,000 fine.
Correct.
Right? So, but as a judge, you can give other options as long as that option is still there. When I say that option, I mean the 20 days in jail, $1,000 fine.
Sure.
You can say, if you go dance in the street, you don't have to do this. Or your other option is the maximum of the contempt. Would that be fair to say?
Sure. I mean, if you give people a choice, as long as you're not inflicting a contempt of court punishment that is in excess of the statutory provisions,
right?
And a person wants to choose that route, I'm telling you, I'm going to knock out the 30-page essay before I spend 20 days in jail.
And before you folks on wherever you're watching or listening talk about, Chat GPT can rewrite this and all that stuff. There's certain things that the judge put in place there about fact checking and all this. I mean, he did his due diligence.
You can almost tell that he might have been a former administrator at a school or a professor.
He's running it through all these.
Yeah, because he said he was going to use anti-plagiarism software so that he knew that it was her writing.
Right.
And also wanted it in APA style format, which, I mean, I would have to go way back to find the book on what that actually meant.
Well, I thought that was a funny one. And the last one that I'm really aware of is there was another potential juror that sent a Twitter message to a media outlet and just asked what the holdup was and what was taking so long in the jury selection process, right?
Sure.
Well, that gets back to the judge. I don't know how, but it does. And Judge Glanville, he's the chief judge in Fulton County. And so he orders this potential juror to do 10 hours of community service at a school or church, and he has to give speeches on behavior, choices, and consequences. And when the trial does eventually start, he has to be there for the first 5 days to watch. What do you think about that one?
I mean, I like it.
I think it's funny, man.
I mean, the thing is, like I said earlier, they are jurors and potential jurors are told exactly what to do and what not to do.
So I think that's a very, very fair point, is that the judge spends just an immense amount of his or her time explaining to the potential jurors what they can and can't do and lays it out. And they're, as attorneys, we hear it, and it's just boring, you know.
Sure.
But he or she's got to be very informative and really lay every single thing out so there's not a mistrial. So it takes a long time. Same thing as reading charges.
Sure. And they know what they're able to do and not able to do. And I think what the judge said in that case is that if you knew that this particular reporter was covering this case, then you had to have been doing some other type of research about the case.
Yep.
I think that's where the most.
Yep.
But not only did you send this message, right, which might have been still innocuous.
Sure, but it's still, that part is even breaking the rule.
But for you to know that this reporter was covering this type of issue,
right,
you must have been doing some type of online research, something like that.
Sure. All right. Well, so that's the three so far jury misconducts that I'm aware of. I know you said there was one more that I haven't.
I've only read about it, but apparently in some type of back and forth between a potential juror and the judge, one of the jurors called the judge a bitch.
Well, are you going to act like a bitch? You're going to call a bitch.
That juror was held in contempt of court as well.
Do we know what the penalty, do we have one of that?
I don't remember.
He may get her or him to write a 30-page brief on the history of the term bitch.
It's possible.
And how it has started from a female dog and now has become derogatory.
It's possible. But what I just keep thinking about is they started this trial in January of 2023.
Well, trial's being used loosely.
Well,
they started the trial process.
They started the trial process, the jury selection process. It's now we're filming this and shooting this. It's June the 2nd. And these little things, not only is it already a long process, but each one of these little things that involve the jurors, involve the attorneys, all make the process even longer. Because when something happens, the judge has to stop court, has to send the jurors out of the courtroom, address that juror, one at a time so it doesn't influence the other jurors. It's all, the longest trial that I've ever had took about 3 weeks, and the jury selection was about a week.
Sure.
Which is
that's pretty fair for a really fact specific, lot of witnesses.
Sure.
3 weeks is a significant amount of time, and usually enough time that's a big case, know. And we're talking about, honestly, this thing is going to be a 2-year process. This is insane.
I'm glad that they didn't call the Hawk Law Group for representation.
Me too. But you're talking about slowing things down. Here's some court proceedings that I made some notes of that are slowing some things down. Sure. Attorney, I just read through them real quick and get your opinion on them and how it affects the length and all that. So one of the attorneys was arguing to suppress evidence from a prior conviction of young thugs, and he was setting up a Zoom feed. And when the Zoom feed came on, pornographic video popped up with a man slinging his wiener around, and it said "Free Young Thug" on there.
what
what happens?
Technology can always help us, and it can always hurt us. Yeah, I saw that. They said the Zoom feed had been set up for
they hacked it. Somebody hacked
different attorneys to be able to not be present in the courtroom,
right?
But still be able to participate and hear what was going on.
Because in this case, you have what, probably
14 defendants,
right? Which could mean 30 attorneys.
Correct. And obviously it was either hacked or that Zoom link was slipped, to someone that used it in that particular manner, and it's a funny video. It's funny to see the looks on the people in the courtroom's face.
Yes.
Frantically and trying to just,
what I also
how do I turn this off?
Is the defendants, they're facing their liberty and their life, right?
Sure.
And when it cuts on, even they started laughing.
Sure.
It was funny. I'm sure the judge did not think it was funny. But I do want to get to some attorney misconduct. So I'll just for the listeners that haven't kept up with it, the delay and why we're 6 months into a jury selection process. Number one, it's a long case. Number two, these are some of the holdups that have happened. That one, during a hearing, there was a hand-to-hand exchange between Young Thug and a co-defendant. It happened in front of the bailiffs. And the co-defendant walked over to Young Thug and dropped some Percocets in Young Thug's hand, and they found him. That's one. So they had to clear the courtroom and all that. Next one.
Golly. The
deputies seized a laptop from one of the defense attorneys because the co-defendants were using the laptop to communicate to other Young Slime members. Lastly, co-defendant Lil Rod had some pot in his possession in the courtroom. Why wouldn't you? And so they removed him, and you could hear him screaming from the holding area. There's a video of it. So they had to get everybody out of the courtroom. It was a whole scene. So that's a day that's gone. So all these things can be a day, 2 days, 3 days delay, and then you got to start all over again. It's just become a circus, a complete circus.
You just have to think about it. And anytime you are trying to conduct a court proceeding that has 14 defendants.
Oh, man.
It's going to be unwieldy.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously with these outbursts of different people, problems with potential jurors, problems with the attorneys. We're
going to get into that.
That are sometimes, involved in it. It's all causing these, unnecessary delays that it's already going to be a long case. I would be in there making sure that my particular client is getting the justice that they deserve. But I certainly wouldn't be doing anything to delay.
No, this is one of those you want to meet with the other side, get in what you can get in, agree with what you agree with,
sure,
and try to eliminate some of these delays. Which brings us to one of the things I was really looking forward to is the attorney misconduct. So far, we're in jury selection. We got a ton of attorney misconduct. And I do enjoy it because it's been brought to my attention that these are some of your classmates.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So you have to help me with some of the names. The first one, Anastasius Manates. Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe it's Anastasius.
Anastasius, okay. Well, he and Attorney Johnson were held in slightly contempt of court for not buying lunch for the other attorneys. And I don't really understand this fully, but the judge, quote, said, "It has been brought to my attention that some of you at various times have gotten very cross with our court personnel. And this falls under the category of professionalism and our obligations as counsel." So obviously the attorneys were told to do this by, maybe it's a day in, day out thing. I don't know. But the judge, so the folks at home think that, know that the judges just don't pick on jurors. They certainly pick on attorneys. This judge had to write, this attorney had to write, both of them had to write a 17-page paper on the importance of professionalism in the legal field and treating one's opponent with civility. The paper is to be published in APA format, 10 primary and 10 secondary sources. If you don't do that by noon on a certain date, 20 days in jail. Wow. As a fellow student of the law with Mr. Manatas, how do you feel about that?
I didn't know anything about that. It had to do with not buying another attorney lunch.
That's what it was. There has to be something.
Yeah, I knew that it had something to do with not treating other colleagues with respect and everything. I know I went to school with him, graduated with him in law school. He was a great individual, always professional with me. And what you have to think about is, when you are a criminal defense attorney, your job is to zealously advocate, for your client. And sometimes, things do get heated. Sometimes things are said. I always tried to, do my best to be a professional, but
and civil to the opposing counsel. You're very civil to them.
Well, what do they say? You get, catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And that's, always how I've tried to be. But there's times that, you see people do things that they normally wouldn't do. Whether or not this happened in this particular case, I have no idea. But
well, we got another lunch situation I got to bring to your attention. I like this one. And shockingly, it's another one of Mr. Shawn Merzlach's, law school partners. Hey, it's just something. I'm getting a little concerned that you're going to do something. I don't know. So this one is attorney.
Georgia State University College of Law has produced some fine attorneys, and for them to be representing individuals in this particular case, God bless them. That's all I can say.
Not you.
Not me.
The next lunch one is I thought was pretty funny. Attorney Suri Jimenez was held in contempt by Judge Glanville for arriving late, just late, and as his punishment, the judge ordered him to order and buy lunch for all his colleagues, meaning all the...
This judge loves
some lunch.
I mean...
But here's what I thought was great about this. The judge recommended get some hoagies from a sandwich shop, right? Jimenez didn't do that. Jimenez pulled some strings and ordered the lawyers some chicken wings from Magic City's Gentleman Club.
Love it. Love it.
That's just a little of a jab right there from the attorney. Man, you can make me do this shit. I'm gonna throw a little bit back at you.
You can make me buy lunch, but you're going to get what I buy.
You're going to get it from the Gentleman's Club. But they're supposed to be good wings. I'm sure they are, but I thought that was funny that the judge actually gave a recommendation of hoagies. And he said, nah, we go into the Gentleman's Club,
Magic
get
City
some wings. Magic City. So those are two. Your buddy Menatez was also arrested in the courtroom. He was caught with prescription pills in court and threw his cell phone at a deputy.
Allegedly.
He's been charged with 2 counts of pills not in their original container, 1 count of obstruction, and 1 count of simple battery. Well, how do you think that's going to work out?
After all I think it's going to work out just fine.
It's going to be dropped. It's just hoopla. It's just craziness.
You have on a high a case like this that has so much attention on it. And then you have all these antics already going on.
From the potential jurors, from the co-defendants.
Sure.
I mean, things are going crazy.
The security is heightened.
Yeah.
Lawyers are being searched, which, typically doesn't happen.
He probably had a prescription medication that was legitimate. And this is just my guess, but I'd be willing to bet on this. And after the hand-to-hand transaction from the co-defendants, they're patting everybody down. And the law is that you have to have it in the original pill bottle container,
which is a crazy law.
It is, because if he needs whatever it is, high blood pressure medicine, right?
Let's say you do take Percocet,
and
you're a controlled substance that is highly addictive and highly abused.
But you got to
I'm supposed to put that in my truck and carry a bottle of 40 of them
exactly
instead of just taking 2 and throwing them in my briefcase.
I agree. Or you have it in your pocket. You need 1, and you're locked in this case for the entire day.
Sure.
And you're on whatever medication it is. Doesn't really matter. But it's illegal to have it without a prescription.
Sure.
Whatever the medication is. And you're there and you say, well, I need to take 1 at 2:00. You have it in your pocket. It can be in whatever it is. But in this situation, he was arrested for it. And I'm sure the cell phone throw was because he was furious. That's what I would guess.
I would guess the same. And it makes me think of all those people that are older than us. Some of them that are about our age. Even my own sister-in-law takes a lot of medications. Those little pill boxes.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Illegal.
Friday. Illegal. Pills in the wrong container.
Yep. Exactly.
Misdemeanor.
Exactly.
Major offense.
Which is crazy. But so I'll give her a pass on that, or him a pass, excuse me. But the judge is I think the judge is trying to really make examples and go, look, we're not putting up with this shit because I'm not doing this.
Did he have to buy lunch for that one?
I'm not sure. No, he just got the charges. I'm sure he will. And this one I thought was curious because we don't know what happened, but the judge gave this quote. During a hearing, Judge Glanville reminded the prosecutors and defense attorneys that evidence must be contained until the trial begins. This has been 6 months. Stuff's starting to leak out, the evidence of the case. And he says, it affects everyone's right to a fair trial. I don't know who did this, but if this pertains to you, please amend your ways. You're playing a very dangerous game with your 6-digit bar number.
Sure.
And that is scary for lawyers, right?
Sure. I mean, and what he was referring to is, I guess there was a video of one of the co-defendants in the case, and that video, I guess, was with law enforcement. He was asking for leniency, and he would testify, and something like that needs to be played during the trial.
Right.
It doesn't need to be put out in the media in advance, because it can impact the ability of that particular person or other people to get a fair trial.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you see that as a juror or potential juror, judges know that they can't do everything. You can't sequester 900 potential jurors. You just can't. You can't house 900.
No.
You just can't do it. So he knows that he's going to give his instructions to not look at any media or talk to him. But people are not going to do it. They're just not.
Sure.
A lot will, but a lot won't. But when a judge tells you, in any situation, when a judge tells you that your bar license might be compromised, I don't think people understand how severe that is.
Well, I wouldn't know because I'd never had a judge tell me that.
Me either, but
But I could only imagine that if I was the person that had done that as an attorney, I would not be feeling very good at that point.
I mean, your bar license is your livelihood. I mean, that's it. That's your whole livelihood.
And what you have to remember is that it probably wasn't an attorney that did that.
Sure.
We have,
when you have to show discovery to your clients.
The prosecution has to provide the defense with discovery, which means all the statements, all the evidence that they intend to use at trial. And then they also have to provide anything that's exculpatory. Mm-hmm.
What is it? Well, this is the Layman's Law School, Shawn. What is
exculpatory? That just means information which may be helpful to the accused, may tend to show.
Essentially, the state can't hide stuff that may, cause doubt, even a reasonable doubt, onto the alleged perpetrator.
Sure.
That'd be fair?
Sure. Good example, let's say you had a murder and they arrested a person for that murder and had all this evidence that they had done that murder, and then all of a sudden they found out it wasn't that person and dismissed that case and then arrested another person. Well, they can't just send you the evidence that relates
on
person B. They have to provide all that evidence because all that information may be exculpatory.
Right.
May be something that you could tell the jury, well, no, this was the person that did it.
Right.
This is the evidence that shows he did it. Things of that nature. So once you as the attorney have that, you're able to review that, and you have to review that with your client. You have to provide it, to the client.
And if you don't, then the case will be ineffective assistance of counsel,
Sure.
correct? So that means that even if you win, lose, or draw that case, it will be appealed.
Sure. And there's certain cases that we try and provide limited information to the clients, especially a lot of times when clients are actually in custody in a detention center. Some of the stuff isn't going to be helpful to them.
Right.
I'm going to hand you a CD that has, a video on it, you won't be able to play it, see it, things like that. But we'll review that with them on our laptop, stuff like that. But in cases where you have people that you're providing discovery to that are your clients and they're sharing with their family members or, whatever the case may be, there's possibilities for things to get leaked.
Sure. And so that actually, I agree with you, Shawn, and one of the, I didn't make a note of which one, but one of the defense attorney's laptops has been seized because Young Successful Living gang members have been using it to communicate with each other.
Sure.
So they easily could have attached that file, made a note of that, whatever it was, and sent it out to another member that's not incarcerated, and then that be leaked into the Twitterverse, So there's all kind of ways that it gets out, but that computer's been seized, and that's just another delay, and they're going to analyze that, and then it's another, week or 2 weeks or whatever. But this case is not even really started, and it's already crazy. When
6 months in.
Yeah, 6 months in, you got felonies happening inside the courtroom of hand-to-hand transactions. Judges, juror members getting arrested, attorneys getting held in contempt, having to buy lunch and write papers. This thing is going to be crazy. And so this is just the start of our analysis of it. I have a sneaking suspicion that there will be a few more episodes, but this is just kind of talking about the beginning of the jury selection process.
There's no telling what's going to happen in this circus. No telling.
Yeah. This is, like I said before, this is the Georgia's OJ case, and it's going to last 2 years, and there's going to be all kind of crazy stuff. So well, that'll wrap it up for this time. Chace, I hope you're out there listening, and I hope you hated it. I really do. I hope you hated it. Every second of it. But outside of that, I hope everybody else enjoyed it. Shawn, always a fun time.
Absolutely.
And let's go enjoy the weekend.
We're going to try.
All right, man.